Hi, you guys. Welcome to episode number 233 here on the Sweet Life Entrepreneur and Business Podcast. And I am joined by my new good friend. I say new good friends because, yes, of course, all my listeners are laughing and be like, oh, yeah, I bet you met her on Clubhouse. Yes, you're right. I met McCall on Clubhouse. And by the way, side note, if you aren't over there yet, you need to come over there and chat with us on Clubhouse because this is what it's all about, meeting amazing people that can pour into your business, that can pour into my business, and create these amazing dream teams of business collaborations that bring us all to the next level. And I have had such a great time the last 5 months getting to know my friend McCall Jones, and I'm so excited she's here on the show today. So McCall, welcome.
I'm so thrilled to be here, April. Yeah, guys, you got to go over to Clubhouse. It's the place to be. We're just making all new friends. It's so fun.
Right. Come hang out with us. Come hang out with us. And with that being said, one of the things that we know about Clubhouse is it's a great place to establish your superpower, your true superpower for how you get people results and your exact method and strategy. And you have risen to the top. It's like the best rise to the top in Clubhouse because of your very niche, amazingly charismatic, important superpower. So tell everybody who you are, what you do, and how you got into doing what you do first. Let's start there.
Yeah, of course. I own a company called Charisma Hacking. So with Charisma Hacking, we work with coaches to solve two problems in their business. Number one, people aren't watching my videos. And number two, people are watching my videos, but they are not buying. So we tap into your specific personality to make sure that you are being yourself so that you get higher value customers that stay forever. The way that I got into Charisma Hacking, I'll give you the short version. It's a long story, but I grew up actually as a child performer. So I was performing in front of audiences of 25,000 when I was 8 and 35,000 when I was 11. And I was performing on a very consistent basis. Did a couple movies in high school. I was in High School Musical 2, which was really fun. But the whole time I had this incredible performance anxiety that was pretty crippling. I had, all of my worth in my mind was wrapped up in the fact that I was a performer. And I had this recurring nightmare that one day I would wake up and not be able to sing, not be able to act, not be able to perform, and that nobody would love me anymore. And this nightmare started when I was a really little girl, and it led me to, long story short, it led me to creating these frameworks. Back then I called them checklists, so that I could wake up and feel like I could teach myself how to do what I did the night before. I also started paying attention to what audiences paid attention to and what they cheered for louder, things like that. It all started with Donny Osmond. It's a long story, but basically I was watching him perform. He sang right before me at the Steve Young Benefit Retirement Cruise. And when I was having this panic attack backstage, basically, I saw the audience interact with him in a way that I had never seen before. And I snuck over to the side of this room divider that they use as this backstage area. And I honestly got really envious and really jealous. And I thought to myself, I could do exactly what he's doing. And I started to make a checklist of like, oh, what he's doing with his hands, what he's doing with his face, what he's doing with his voice, who's he pointing at, how's he walking on the stage. And I started to log these things into this checklist. And then I realized that these checklists were going to lower my anxiety considerably. And I just made checklists for everything after that. I realized that it's more of a science, and it led to creating checklists for acting, for dance, for all different types of audiences and sizes. I used it for auditions. And then when I was 18, I was fired from an acting job for being too fat. They literally dismissed me from set. I had gained weight between the audition and when we were actually filming, which it isn't their right to do that, but it was very devastating to me. All of a sudden, this fear of rejection became just rejection. And in that moment, I vowed to never get on camera again. I knew that I never wanted to do that again. I didn't want to feel the way that I was feeling in that moment. And so I didn't. And I stayed low for a couple years. And the really depressing thing about that, I went into this very deep depression. I had spent my whole life at this point perfecting the art of being in front of people, really perfecting it of, all of these checklists of like, this works, this doesn't, in front of these audiences, you move this large, and in front of these audiences, here's what you're supposed to do, and, in auditions. And then I wasn't using these skills that I had built over, my entire life. And within a couple of years, I had somebody come to me and ask me if I would help them with an audition. And I said yes, under very strict circumstances, because I didn't want to be the reason they succeeded or failed. And I told her that I would help her as long as we did a before-after video. And if I could prove that I made a difference, then yes, we could do it again. I could take her money and we could move forward that way. And I just taught her some of the checklists that I had really never verbalized outside of my brain. And it worked in a very real way. The before after video was insane, which led to my whole first business, which was helping entertainers basically be better in front of people. And then about a year and a half ago now, I went to Funnel Hacking Live, which is a big internet marketing convention. And I just went to see my sister-in-law speak. She was speaking. I knew it was a big deal for her, but I knew nothing about the internet marketing world. And as I looked around, I started taking notes of all these entrepreneurs that when they would come up to me, they would light up and share all of their solutions, the amazing things they were doing. And we'd go 5 feet, to the left or to the right, and they would be networking with other people, and they would shut down, and they would be a completely different person. And then I'd see them filming things for ads or joint ventures or vlogs, and they were just not great. They were not themselves. And I realized that nobody would ever hear their solutions. Nobody would ever listen to them. People on stage that I was just like, oh my gosh, they just had these techniques. I could help them. And as I looked around, I realized, with entertainers, my whole life, I had gone through, the way that I'm going to change the world. First, as a performer, was I'm going to make people happy. Then, as a coach of entertainers, I'm going to change the world by basically trying to help people be famous. And then as I sat there surrounded by people who had these incredible solutions that truly were going to change people's lives, I realized that my impact on the world could be infinite because theirs was if I empowered them to make people listen to them, basically. So I started charisma hacking. It's been going really well and it's really fun. All of the techniques that we use, like I said, have been proven. I've used them since I was 8 years old. I have hundreds of before after videos proving their effectiveness. And yeah, that's what brought us here. I don't think I could do anything else. This is so much a part of my identity and everything that I've done since I was a little girl.
Wow, I have honestly never heard that whole entire story. I never knew that was your background, actually, in all the time we've spent together on Clubhouse. It's really interesting what you say. So I don't know if you knew this, but my middle son is a professional hip hop dancer. And so we have lived in Los Angeles before COVID a week a month. He was there working. And interestingly enough, since COVID and since he's kind of not currently dancing right now, but in some of the wave that you were sharing, like about viewing yourself and how you show up, I see some of that. I've seen some of that in him and some of those same challenges, actually. Yeah. And so it is really, really fascinating to hear that. And yeah, there just being like a mom in that industry, there is nothing like that industry. And how cool is that absolutely completely perfectly position you to help other kinds of stars, people that have amazing solutions for businesses, but actually utilize what you know from the entertainment space, because it's like, what is that? It's reminding me of Gladiator of Russell Crowe when he's like, are you not entertained? You know what I mean? Totally. And I just think that's such an amazing story. And absolutely, you're the perfect person to give this solution to people. And, me being in the entrepreneur space my whole life, you're right. I see so many people that have these amazing solutions, but yet it's not getting out. There's like a block of some kind, and you have the gift to see that. So I'm so excited you're on the show.
Thank you.
Today, we're going to talk about your framework that you've developed literally since you were 8. This genius started flowing. Your framework that people need, and when we give people frameworks to build their own genius within, that's when we've truly created something that's amazing, that's going to, like you said, your one framework impacts literally a magnitude and a multitude of people. Let's talk about, what does this look like? Like, first of all, when people say, what is actual charisma hacking? Like, what actually is the definition of charisma hacking? Let's start there.
Absolutely. So I define charisma a little bit different, and I will tell you why. First thing that I feel like people define charisma as is like what the masses consider high energy. And they're like, oh, they can command a room because they're this very specific personality type. I do not define charisma that way. With all the research that I've done, with all the clients that I've worked with, and with my own experience, I define charisma as making strangers trust you and making those who know you aggressively devoted to you. That does not matter, and it's not dependent on your personality type. It only matters the level in which you communicate with people. So for me, it's exactly what you said. With the entertainment industry, everything is about rejection. You get so many more rejections than you actually get jobs, really. And, people who like you or dislike you, and people are picking apart every single part of your personality. And for me, growing up, a lot of times people wanted me to be something different. And because I was an actress, I could do that. I had a very specific skill set that anytime somebody didn't like a very specific part of my personality, I would change. And a lot of times they wanted me to be sexier, or I was called Stepfordy once. Some people have told me that because I am bubbly, they thought I was stupid. There's so many different things that kind of built up this what people want me to be, which I know a lot of times that's how people define charisma. They say, what do people want me to be? What do they need me to be? And I will be that. When I started charisma hacking, remember, I made this vow to myself that I would never get on camera again. And at Funnel Hacking Live, I had this really interesting experience where the whole first day that I was planning, creating this new business model, I was trying to figure out a way for me to do it behind the scenes. With that whole first business, I was very much behind the scenes. I was pushing other people, out in front of the spotlight, on the stage, on camera. I was the director, the producer, and I felt like I was happy and satisfied with that. So that's what I tried to do the whole first day. I tried to figure out a way to not be on camera, to not be the face of my business. And I very quickly realized that was not possible if I wanted to make the impact that I wanted to. And there was a wonderful woman who spoke at Funnel Hacking Live. Her name is Heather Quizzle. She's a friend of ours now. And I went up to compliment her on her speech, and she stopped me and said, "What do you do?" And I tried on my new business title and my new business description, and she just told me, it was like she saw through me. She's like, whatever you do, make sure you're the face of it. Make sure that you are on every video, on every ad, on everything. And it really struck me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm being seen. So when I got home, I had to make this promise to myself that I make all of my clients also promise themselves. And it's that they have to be themselves 100% of the time. They cannot try to think, hey, if I'm going to be charismatic, I need to be whatever people want me to be, whatever people think I should be, whatever will, attract the masses or satisfy the masses, whatever they will like. Instead, we focus on this aggressive devotion, like I said before, that actually draws people to your specific personality. I will tell you, I am not for everyone, and a lot of people will tell you that, right? I am kooky and crazy and silly and all these things, and I wasn't that for a really long time. And my greatest achievement, I believe, with charisma hacking is building a business around actually who I am. Because every time people watch my videos, every time they move higher in my programs or up my value ladder, they only want to get to know me more. Or at the very bottom, they know if I'm not for them and they leave. So they don't waste any time. I don't spend any money marketing towards people who are not a good fit. So with this, when we say, okay, charisma hacking, right? We make people themselves, and we make them not only themselves, that version of themselves, that level of themselves is the very best person they can be in their business and for their clients. So when I said, like, I didn't want to be the face of my company, it led me taking all of these amazing things, all of these frameworks, and really breaking down what was important. How do we make you yourself? Because the frightening thing is you absolutely can build an audience if you are not being yourself, and that should terrify you, because all of a sudden you're creating a new problem. You are building an audience for a person who does not exist. If you create an alter ego and a character that you feel will help you be less nervous, and you just, put on your Sasha Fierce face and you go on camera, you are building an audience for that person. They are investing in that version of you that is not sustainable. You can build an audience that way, but you will spend time and money acquiring an audience, acquiring a customer that is not a good fit for any of your higher programs, especially as a coach. Because the closer they get to you, the more they will realize, first, you create distrust, you create a sense of discomfort because they realize you're not the same person, and they leave. Right? So instead we say, okay, you're going to be the face of your company. You're going to be the same 100% of the time so that we can create trust and we can make them aggressively devoted to you by being the face of your company. So I know we have a big face framework that we're going to go through too, but that's the core of charisma hacking.
And that's a scary statement to hear for some of our listeners. And I'm so glad that you said that the fact that you are literally building an audience around somebody that doesn't exist because it isn't you, and you aren't showing up authentically to who you are and who you're going to be after they buy you. Yeah. And, refunds and, disgruntled people. I mean, that's all part of what happens in that. And so it's so important that you said what you said, but I also think it's pretty sobering in the fact that you said it as clearly as you did. Mm-hmm. And so I also know that, we have a lot of listeners, and with the process of where they are in business, when you are starting to launch, I actually think that in my experience in coaching businesses through the development and growth phase, the launch people, surprisingly, that yes, they deal with kind of struggling with this so much, they actually are pretty good at being themselves. It's after they start getting a little traction, I have seen them go to this next point of saying, oh, but I'm not enough. Oh, now I need to become somebody different in order to actually keep getting a little bit more traction. This is usually like in the first 18 months. Sometimes
totally.
I see that transition. And so I love that you said that, because eventually, that's going to be a brick wall for them. And thank you so much for speaking the truth. And that's what we do here on this show. And I know our listeners really want and need to hear it. So let's talk about this FACE framework. What is it? Why do people need it? Break it down for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So with this FACE framework, what we are really assessing is two things. So it's your personality style or type, or your charisma style or type. That's one side of it. And the second side of it is the level, right? So the first thing that we establish is making sure that your personality type is right, or we can even say is true. Right? And I'll break down the different parts of your personality that we make sure that we assess. The second part of that, it never changes. Your personality or charisma type never changes, but the level does. As you get more competent or more, at an expert level on video, these very specific things are going to level up. But who you are and your personality type doesn't change, and that's super important. So we go through FACE. So F is the floor, or we can say the level. We can call it the flow if you want. And this is where we assess how competent you are or how effective you are at making sure these next three, the A, C, and E, are the right type and what level they're at. So F is floor, so we're going to assess the level. A is authority. C is compassion. And E is entertainment. So with all of our research that we've done, not over the last year and a half, but obviously for the last 20 years, I have found that you have to have these 3 things in order to fully connect with a human. Now, everybody has them within their personality, so it's really important that on camera, we make sure that all 3 of these things are present in very specific times. So, authority makes people act. It makes people buy. And I'll tell you how we measure that in just a second. Compassion makes people confess. It makes you safe. It makes them engage in the comments. And I'll tell you how we measure that. And then entertainment makes people watch, right? So with each one of these things, we have a way to measure not how you are in person. Right? What we're saying is we have to make sure how you are in person when you are with your very favorite person in the world is the exact same person. We call this emotional accuracy as you are on camera. So we look at these very specific types of personality or parts of personality. So authority would be like when you're in charge of something, when you are in your element teaching something, how do you act? When you are with your very favorite person, we have very specific ways we measure that. With compassion, it's when you're being empathetic with people, when you are counseling them, when they come to you about hard things, or when you're being vulnerable. How are you sounding, right? Voice, face, body language, right? How do you sound? How do you move? How do you speak when you are actually doing those things with your favorite person in real life? And then entertainment is when you are goofing off, when you are being lighthearted, all those different things. Now, each one of these things are going to look very different for different people. Some people's authority is based in strength and empowering, and it can even feel a little bit aggressive. Some people's authority is very much based in patience and making sure that people know that they know what they're talking about by being very patient with them, right? Compassion, same thing. Some people are like, hey, I'm going to kick you in the butt. Like, we got to go. This is how I'm being compassionate. And other people are deep listeners and they want people to feel very seen. Entertainment, some people are dry. Some people are bubbly. Some people are, the kid in the back corner making jokes under his breath. Right? There are different types of all of these different things. So making sure that you assess how you are when you're with your very favorite person. Once again, I'll give you ways to measure these. Say, how is my voice? Right? The most common thing that I see with my clients is when they're on video with me and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This is so great. And then they get on video and we're filming and they're like, I am so excited to be here. Okay, well, if your voice sounds like this, we're actually excited. And then you sound like this when you're on camera, when you're excited. It's not emotionally accurate. Right? A lot of people say the word authentic. I don't actually like to use the word authentic for this very specific reason. I like systems. I like to measure. I like things to be measurable and repeatable. Yeah. And authenticity is just a little bit vague, right? I know what they mean, and I think that that's fantastic. But emotional accuracy, with exactly what I just did with my voice, we can say, is it accurate or is it not? Is that actually how you sound, move, speak when you're excited, when you're being compassionate, when you're being authoritative or not? Right? So we dive into all these different things. So now with the level, so once we find the type, once we find your specific personality type, then we assess the level. And as you go up in level, you are able to retain attention more. Your watch times go up. That's the entertainment part. You are able to know pain points, objections, and get more comments and engagement because your compassion is higher. And you are able to move people to action in very real ways. Any call to action that you give them, whether it's buy, opt in, watch this video if it's in a course, it's very effective and people do what you basically tell them to do, right? So we have your type and then we start moving up your level. So within authority, I'll give you this and then I'll tell you a quick story. So within authority, we have 5 different levels. Only the top 3 make you any money. The bottom 2 do not. The very bottom level of authority is the level of authority where you say, okay, have you guys ever watched somebody and thought they have no idea what they're talking about? Right? You watch them and you're like, yes. Okay, they have no idea what they're talking about. If I were to share their stuff or associate my business with them, it would do bad things to my business. It would not be a good idea, right? Yes, bottom level of authority. The next level is the most interesting level because it still does not make you money, but this person is very likable. You watch their stuff, you share their stuff, you like root them on from the side, but you would never pay them money, right? If you watch somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, they're making their dreams come true. This is so great, but I would never hire them as a coach, but I would totally root for them. I'll share their stuff. This is great, right? Still doesn't make you money. You can be the most likable person in the world, have the most views in the world, but if you're missing that authority, you still aren't making any money. The next level up from there is employee authority. What this means, we're basically saying how much control will somebody give you of their business, right? So with employee authority, somebody would give you a checklist. They would feel, and a lot of coaching clients, guys, if you are a coach and you get clients that feel like they will give you the checklist of what you're going to do, you have employee level authority. Even if you can get them to pay money at first, it is not a good client for you, right? Because they feel if they gave you a checklist of exactly what to do, you would be competent to accomplish it. The next one is contractor level authority. These are the clients who feel like every single thing you do is up for discussion and that they can decide which actions they want to take, and not because with contractor level authority, they trust you in one very specific area, but they don't trust you with steps. They don't trust you with direction. These are things like funnel builders where we say, okay, I am in charge, but I trust that you have expertise in building this funnel, but every single thing we do is up for discussion. And then the very top level of authority is coach level authority. When you get to this level of authority, not only will people pay you and see you as a coach, but when you get coaching clients, you have been given control. They do what you say. They trust your expertise in your area. It's something where you can give them steps and direction, and they are ideal clients. They pay you money and then they thank you for taking their money because you have this level of authority. They don't question that, which is really great. So with all these things, like I said, I have not said anything about some personality types have more authority than others, right? Every single personality type, regardless if you're introverted, extroverted, loud, quiet, whatever, right? Every single personality type goes through these levels, right? And the way that we measure if you're effective in this is, do people move to action? Right? Do they buy, or do they opt in, or whatever your call to action is at the end of your video? If they don't, your authority is probably down in the second from bottom level, right? They probably like you if they're engaging with you and like, oh my gosh, I'm being myself, right? But they do not see the authority enough to buy from you. So go ahead. I'm giving you so much.
So yes, obviously so much to say. I'm sure our listeners are like, oh my gosh, okay. I'm not taking notes. By the way, side note, McCall and I are always co-moderating Clubhouse rooms. So just join us in a Clubhouse room, and McCall can even expand on this for you personally as well. So this is really interesting. As you were breaking it out, one of the things that I from like the offer development side of it that I see like level 3 and 4 for those businesses that do like the done for you or the done with you type services, which is interesting because some coaches obviously also have another separate of their division of their company that is like the build out or, whatever that is, the done for you. But one of the things that I coach my clients on is you're not the person that does that. You're the coach. Like you have to have a separate team to do that. That works with that client to actually implement that. That is a way to grow and scale your business. But I've never been able, it's like the way I'm communicating it has gotten through, but the way you communicate it, even now, I'll be able to say yes, because that's a different level of authority in taking your coach authority and bringing it back down to the contractor or that employee authority is actually reducing your expertise and bringing you down a scale after they have paid you top dollar for whatever it is that you do. And so that, as you were saying all of that, that's immediately what I was thinking is these entrepreneurs that are listening to this show, small businesses that are listening to this show that have the coaching authority, but also this separate, I'll do it with you, or I'll do it for you after I coach you and strategize how to do that. It's a great business model. It's a great way to scale and grow your business. Like we even have a separate design division of our company, but I don't do it. And so it's just really interesting that you were saying that. So getting back to these coaches though, what do they do, McCall, if they are like, oh my gosh, I think I'm at this. I'm looking at my notes here. I have like millions of McCall notes behind the scenes and with a pencil because my children steal all my pens. It's all we have left in the house. And, like, what is the deal if they're like, oh my gosh, I'm at this employee level. I'm not showing up with confidence. How do you get them from where they are now to that level 5, that I have the authority here. I know what I'm doing. You know me. I'm like, I have a framework. Everybody has to have their own framework or method. Like, how do we help them?
Absolutely. Such a good question. So the very first thing that everybody needs to do is they need to make sure that their type is correct, right? So you can be very competent. And if you're trying to, I don't know how many of your listeners know who Garrett J. White is, but if Garrett J. White and Russell Brunson, right, these are 2 internet marketers in the online space. If Garrett J. White and Russell Brunson, or let's say Tony Robbins and Brene Brown or Marie Forleo, if they tried to use the same tactics, it would work for one of them and they would not work for the other one of them because they're very different people, right? So if you look at Marie Forleo, the way that she entertains is very authentic to her, right? She uses her voice kind of like this, and she's kind of silly and all over the place. With Brene Brown, if Brene Brown tried to be Marie Forleo, it would be a disaster. And Brene Brown's people would be like, I don't buy it, right. Which immediately would not only like lower her entertainment level, but it would also lower her authority level, right? The first thing that people can sense is just a yes or a no. They just say, is something off here? Right? Is something off? So the first thing that you want to make sure that you do is we're going to find emotional accuracy in all 3 of these areas. I'm going to give you a very specific thing that you can do in order to do that. Because being emotionally accurate first, then you can actually be likable, right? As soon as you're likable, we can start to increase your authority with very specific things as well. So the first thing that you're going to do, I'm going to tell you a very quick story that's going to make sense of how to do this. So we're looking for emotional accuracy. So when I was a voice acting performance teacher, I had this wonderful 9-year-old student named Beck. He was incredible. He was like, bounce off the wall, kind of spastic kid, who seriously was one of my very favorite humans ever. And I had taught him singing lessons, voice lessons for the last 6 months, but this was the first time he wanted to try acting. He had this big audition coming up. It was this all-male version of Annie, which was really interesting. And he had a 3-line audition. He had a script that gave him 3 lines, a description of how to say it, and he memorized his script because he was a go-getter. And remember, my whole first business was before after videos. So he comes down to my studio and he's all ready to go, and I taught him singing, and it's hard to get him to stand still, right? And I read this description. He hands me the script. I read this description. It just says very excited, basically excited out of his mind. There's boats in the harbor. He's never seen boats. It's supposed to be really exciting for him. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to nail this. This is going to be amazing.
Totally.
So I'm like, okay, Beck, we're going to do your before video. Are you ready? He's like, yeah, I'm totally ready. And you kind of see him like looking off to the side to recall his script that he's memorized, these 3 lines. I was like, okay, ready, action. And he goes, the boats, Mama, you were holding me up to see the boats and they were right there. And I was like, okay, cut. And then he kind of like bounced around. And he's like, yeah, how'd I do? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, here's what we need to do, Beck. I was like, this time, I just want you to be excited about the boat, right? We just need to be excited about the boats. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay. I'm like, okay, ready, action. He's like, the boats, Mama, you were holding me up to see the boats and they were right there. I was like, okay, let's try something different. So, Beck, I want you to tell me about your very favorite thing in the entire world. He's like, my puppy, Snickerdoodle. Snickerdoodle's the best puppy in the world. When you tell her to sit, she sits. And when you tell her to stay, she stays. I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. I want you to talk about Snickerdoodle. We want to be just as excited as we are when we talk about Snickerdoodle. But instead of saying Snickerdoodle, we're going to talk about the boats. You understand? He was like, oh, yeah, totally. I was like, okay, ready, action. He's like, the boats, Mama, you were holding me up to see the boats, and I could see them right there. And what I understood in this moment with this wonderful 9-year-old is he didn't have any emotional context for his copy. He had memorized it, which for a lot of people, if they have something memorized or scripted, they feel like they are doing it well. when instead that emotional accuracy was not there. He needed to have something in his life that was emotionally accurate for the emotion he was supposed to be on camera. And then he had to make them match, right? Now, the coolest thing, I've had people when I've done this in trainings before say, well, what if I'm not like Beck? What if I'm not bouncing off the walls, right? What if my snickerdoodle story, because this is what we call them, sounded like the boats, Mama. You were holding me up to see the boats and I could see them right there. That's perfect, right? Because then the way he talked about snickerdoodle would be, my puppy snickerdoodle. Snickerdoodle is the coolest. As long as it's emotionally accurate, it's effective. Doesn't matter what personality type, it just has to be accurate, has to be emotionally accurate. So with each one of these things, we want to create or have snickerdoodle stories for authority, compassion, and entertainment, right? These are going to be our triggers, our trigger snickerdoodle stories. So when you are authoritative, when you're in charge, when you're in your element at home, right, with your friends, when you're giving advice, you're making sure that they're moving to act in the way that you tell them, right, as a parent, whatever, as a teacher, right, in person, what are you like when you are doing these things? How do you sound? Beck's voice was different. It was from the boats, Mama, snickerdoodle, to the boats, Mama, right? Don't let that happen. If it's snickerdoodle, then it needs to be the boats, right? How do you move when these things are happening? What do you do with your arms? How do you speak? If you use very formal language online, but you never use that in person, it is not going to translate very well, right? So you need snickerdoodle stories for all three of these things. Once you find your personality type, you also can start to charisma hack other people who have the same personality type in one of these areas, but a higher level than you, right? Easiest way to do this, find somebody who you feel you can see yourself in and pay attention to how they communicate with people. Pay attention to what's effective. Take notes. See what they're doing with their voice, with their face, with their language, with their body, right? You can say, oh, I like this person. They are like me authoritatively, but they're so much more effective. Okay, I'm going to charisma hack those things. I'm going to write them down and I'm going to use that. If it's somebody who has a different personality type than you, like I said, Brene Brown cannot be Marie Forleo. If they tried to be something different, it would be a disaster, right? So find your personality type first. With authority, we have content strategy and we have charisma strategy, right? So it's first making sure that we have emotional accuracy. And second, it's making sure that you're hitting very specific things in your content that lead them to buy before you ever get to what all of my clients call the pitch transition. If you're doing it right, there shouldn't be a transition, right? The entire time you're pitching or telling a story, you're establishing your authority in a very specific way so that people ask for your programs. When you get to the call to action, it is so easy. All of a sudden, they just buy. They just buy from you because you have highlighted their pain in very specific ways. You've highlighted your solution in very specific ways, right? The way that you deliver it and the content that you bring to the table, the way that you structure your own framework that I know April is helping with because she's a genius. That's what I would say. That's where I would start. Where I would have everybody start.
Oh my gosh, everybody needs, here's my notes. This is what I wrote down.
I love it.
We all need a snickerdoodle story for each one of these areas: authority, compassion, and entertainment. So, okay, next question.
Yes.
So does the snickerdoodle, so when we are speaking in authority, when we're speaking in compassion, when we're speaking with the entertainment component, I know it all comes together into one video. Mm-hmm. What if those different stories bring up like another part of our personality? Does that make sense? Like what if like when you're talking, like some of this is like, this is really serious and blah, blah, blah. But then it goes into like, but then blah, blah, blah. Like, does that make sense? Am I making sense? Like if part of when somebody's on video, if the flow of the stories brings them through experiencing multiple, I don't want to say multiple personalities because that's not the right word, but multiple emotions from the leader, from me or whoever's making the video. What about that? Like, we're taking them through a wave of different types of experiences through that. Is that okay or not okay?
So you're a genius, because that's what we call emotional mapping. That is 100% a thing that we do in everything. So very short videos, usually you will have one snickerdoodle story, right? Very short videos, you have one emotional point that needs to get across. That is one. But with longer form content, right, we have what we call an emotional map. With every single part of your speech, of your live, of your webinar, of your ad, whatever it is, right? If it's long form video, then you are going to map out the different emotions that people need to feel. And then if you have a script, you're going to color coordinate it. You're going to color code it. If you have bullet points, you'll color code those, right? So you'll have a color for entertainment, you'll have a color for authority, you'll have a color for compassion. Now, every single video doesn't have to hit all three, but your audience has to see all three in order to fully connect with you. A lot of times, compassion isn't introduced into every single video, right? Deep compassion and vulnerability, sometimes you don't see that in an ad, right? You only see entertainment and you only see authority, right? A lot of times when we get to sales calls, because those are also on video, compassion is extra high. You need people to confess their pain to you in very specific ways, so that compassion piece needs to be higher. So as you map out your video and you map out these snickerdoodle stories, you're going to emotionally map it. At which points do they need to make sure that they are feeling very specific things? Now, what I have my clients do is write out Post-it notes and just stick to your computer with those snickerdoodle story triggers in them. So when you get to those stories, you can look at your trigger and you can say, oh, right, that's the emotionally accurate thing. The other thing I would say is, before every single video, we call it a cold open versus a warm open. You have to make sure that you get into that snickerdoodle story, that you get emotionally accurate before you ever push record. The analogy that I like to use is, imagine you were an Olympic sprinter and you decided, right, you're like, I got this, or you were nervous and you had a 400 race, right, 4 times around the track, and you decided that because you got it or because you were nervous, you're not going to warm up. The first lap of your race would be your warm up, right? Either your warm up is chosen for you or you choose your warm up, right? So you would hit your stride after that first lap, after you've warmed up. Same thing with video. So many people push record and then they're like, well, 5 minutes into the video, I really get to be myself. Or like 8 minutes into the video, all of a sudden I hit my stride. It's because you are not in an emotionally accurate place before you hit record. Instead, you push record and then you're like, hello, everybody. I'm going to try to do this, right? 30 to 45 seconds before your video starts, before you push record, before you start a Clubhouse room, before you start your podcast, before you start whatever, speak out loud your snickerdoodle story, but we turn it into an I am phrase. If your snickerdoodle story is all about, okay, yeah, my entertainment, oh, that is silly, right? Then you say, I am silly, right? Whatever this snickerdoodle story puts you in the frame of mind to, right? Voice, face, body, language, right? You say, I am silly, until you get to the point where it is emotionally accurate.
Right.
You can say other things out loud as well. If it's authoritative and you're like, I am empowering. So then when you start your video, you're not like, hi guys, I'm here. You're like, hi guys, I'm here. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm an emotionally accurate person who's being authoritative right now, instead of having to warm up, having that time and losing people at the beginning of your videos. So the snickerdoodle story for each one of them, you map out those points if it's a long form video, and before you ever start those videos, you warm up. You do a warm open 30 to 45 seconds before you get in that emotionally accurate place that we practiced with the snickerdoodle stories, so that it's effective from the time you push record.
Amazing. You guys, this is so much more. McCall just poured so much more into us than we discussed before we started recording that she was going to talk about on this show. So that, as usual, you have shown up and delivered and supported our listeners, and you are freaking amazing. It's super unique in what you do. And I love that you have found your stride and your superpower that is so different from everybody else's out there. And it's such a pleasure to work with you and to know you and to do fun collaboration stuff with you. It's just always a blast. And I appreciate you so much. So how can people, so this is a ton of great information, and I know our listeners are going to go and really start applying the actionable steps that we talked about here, but we have tomorrow's next level entrepreneurs that listen to this show. People hone in here because they want to know that they're getting trusted business advice, not just anything. It's really proven and trusted advice. And so we also have people that are action takers here, where they know if this is something that you guys know that you suck at this, that this is something that it is like, this has been it. Everywhere else in your business you might be nailing, or maybe you're even not there, but you keep trying and trying and trying, and there's just something off about the way you're showing up. Then I want them to make sure that you guys know how to connect with McCall. In addition to our clubhouse rooms, in addition to the places where I would highly, highly recommend that you follow McCall on Clubhouse and that you do join our rooms, because we talk about these things. She goes in there and workshops all these things and helps. But what would be the first step for somebody who is thinking, hey, listen, I am really struggling with showing up authentically. I have tried. I want to be myself. I want to be true to myself. It's deep rooted. I really want to be what I know that I am to my people, but I can't figure out how. How do they work with you to start going through that process?
Yes. The first thing that I want to be very clear on is most of my clients, so yes, absolutely showing up authentically, we work on that. But a lot of my clients feel like they rock on video, but their sales are not great, right? They're like, I am very likable. I am myself, but I am not selling, right? Or they are rock stars. 90% of my clients speak in front of audiences of hundreds of thousands of people in person. For some reason, can't sell on video, right? Something doesn't translate. So the way that you guys can work with me, I know that April's going to put all of the links in the show notes that you guys can check out all the things, but I felt like the very best thing that you can do, I have a free thing for you. It's charismavault.com. On charismavault.com, I break down 5 days a week on Facebook Live, and then I put them into this vault, different personalities using my charisma hacking tactics. So you can see people of all different personalities, all different levels, broken down using these tactics so that you can find those people who have the same type at different levels. At charismavault.com, when you sign up, you get an email that literally says, be my friend. And if you want to work with me, you book a call when that comes through to be my friend, and we can bond, and you can hire me as a coach and do all the things. You also will get the free thing though. You sign up, you get access to every single episode. There's like 120 episodes in there, separated by different people, different personality types, different video types, whether you're wanting to do ads, whether you're wanting to do Facebook Lives, YouTube, webinars, live presentations on stage, any of those things. They're all broken into different categories and really, really easy to find.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is incredible. charismavault.com, you guys. All right, Ms. McCall, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for your wisdom and pouring into our guests today on the show.
Thank you so much.
Super pleasure.